Imagine standing in court and not even trying to explain yourself, because all your life you were taught that speaking wasn't your place. The morning docket in Providence ticks forward, papers slide, a bailiff's shoe squeaks, the vent hums like a distant radio. Judge Caprio turns another page and looks up to find an immaculate woman at the rail. Mid-50s, posture trained by decades of dinners and handshakes, camel jacket, pearls that don't move when she does. Name, the clerk asks. Margaret Lawrence, she replies, voice polished to a shine. Caprio scans the file. Speeding. Downtown. Unpaid. Ms. Lawrence, were you driving? She tips her head, a polite smile meant to end conversations before they begin. Technically, no. The car belongs to our company. My husband handles these things. Caprio's brow rises a fraction. Your husband isn't here. You are. A lighter laugh, almost friendly. I'm sure he'll sort it out. He knows the mayor, he knows, well, I imagine he knows you. A soft ripple crosses the benches. Caprio doesn't blink. I don't care whom he knows. The law doesn't trade introductions. The smile falters. Her hands fold, then refold, as if searching for a memory of how to be comfortable. He turns the citation toward her. Registered to Lawrence Development. The assigned driver listed here left the company months ago. I'll ask again, were you behind the wheel? Silence stretches. Somewhere, a cell phone is silenced with a guilty tap. Yes, she says at last, barely above a whisper. It was late. I was in a hurry. I didn't think it mattered. Caprio nods once, making no theater of it. Why didn't you pay the fine? The answer arrives with the precision of a script she's repeated for years. My husband told me these things don't involve me. I'm under his name. The room takes that in. Not outrage, recognition. The kind that makes people shift in their seats. Caprio's voice softens, not indulgent but human. Ms. Lawrence, in this room you are not under anyone's name. You are under oath. Her gaze drifts to the gallery and back, as if searching for a cue that doesn't come. Up close, the polish shows seams, careful makeup hiding a tired night, a diamond that hasn't been cleaned lately. He continues, steady. You're entitled to counsel if you want it. You're not entitled to hand this moment to someone else. She opens her mouth, closes it, opens it again. I'm not accustomed to dealing with this. What are you accustomed to? He asks. Not worrying, she says, with a brittle smile. He earns. He decides. I keep things pleasant. Caprio looks down at the page, then back at her as if weighing more than a speed limit. Pleasant isn't a defense. It's a disguise. The benches quiet even further, the way rooms do when they sense the conversation has arrived at its real subject. He places the citation face down. We'll address the fine. But before that, we need to be honest about something else. She inhales, shoulders rising a fraction. About what? About who is actually living your life, Caprio says. For the first time, her eyes flinch. The answer doesn't come. The courtroom holds its breath. And the morning, which began as just another ticket, turns by a degree, toward a woman who has never been required to stand alone, standing alone at last. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Her name wasn't always Mrs. Lawrence. Once, long before the diamonds and the gates, she was simply Margaret Wilson, who dreamed of opening a cafe near the ocean. The room feels smaller now. The bravado has drained from her posture, even her pearls seem quieter. Judge Caprio studies her for a moment before speaking. Tell me, Mrs. Lawrence, what do you do for a living? She straightens a little, reflexively. My husband owns Lawrence Development. Construction, real estate. I assist where I can. Assist, Caprio repeats, the word turning in his mouth like a coin. Does that mean you work in the company? Her lips curl in a polite smile. Oh, no. I'm his wife. There's no irony, no awareness, just certainty. She has said it 1,000 times before, like a title carved into marble. Caprio leans back, voice steady but gentler now. And before that? Before Lawrence development? A pause. She hesitates, as if asked to remember a name she hasn't spoken in years. Before. Before him, he clarifies softly. For the first time, her gaze drops. I was Margaret Wilson. I grew up in Pawtucket. My father drove trucks for a dairy plant. My mother was a nurse. We didn't have much, but I liked that life. I wanted to start a cafe one day. By the ocean. Simple. The word simple leaves her lips with a kind of mourning. Caprio waits, letting the silence stretch. And what happened to that girl? A small laugh escapes her, sharp, defensive. She met George Lawrence. He was charming, ambitious. Said he'd make sure I'd never have to work a day in my life. Did that sound like a promise or a warning? She doesn't answer. He continues, quietly. Did you believe him? I did, she says finally. He was all confidence. He built everything from nothing. When the money started coming, he said I should stop worrying about little things. Bills. Bank accounts. Even my own car. He said, I'll handle everything, you just look like victory. Her voice wavers, though she tries to laugh. He used to call me his trophy of perseverance. And are you? She blinks. I don't know what I am anymore. The audience has fallen still. The hum of the ceiling fan is the only sound between questions. Caprio leans forward. Tell me, Mrs. Lawrence, are the cars, the houses, the accounts, any of them in your name? She shakes her head slightly. No. He says it's safer that way. In case something happens with the business. Safer for whom? The question lands heavier than any gavel. Her breath catches. He tells me not to worry. Says I don't need to understand how things work. That's his world. And your world? My world, she repeats faintly, as though the phrase itself doesn't fit. My world is dinners, events, pretending to enjoy people who call him, sir. My world is smiling when he speaks for both of us. The edge of her composure begins to crack. She smooths her skirt, then looks at her hands as if they might betray her. Caprio's tone softens. Do you ever think about that cafe by the ocean? Her eyes flick up, startled by the gentleness. Sometimes, she admits. When I can't sleep. I picture the tables, the smell of coffee, people who know my name, not because of him, but because I earned it. He nods once, quietly. That's a beautiful dream. I let it go, she says. He told me I was meant for better things. That I should be proud to carry his name. Caprio looks down at the papers on his desk, then back up. And now, even here, you're still carrying it. Like armor that keeps you safe, and invisible. Her eyes glisten, but she doesn't look away. For the first time, her voice trembles when she speaks. I don't know who I'd be without his name. Caprio doesn't respond immediately. He adjusts his glasses, speaks low and firm. Mrs. Lawrence, sometimes people hide not behind money, but behind someone else's identity. And the cruelest part is, they forget when they stopped existing as themselves. The words hang in the air, heavy and compassionate all at once. She swallows, lips parting as if to reply, but no sound comes. Her reflection flickers in the polished wood of the judge's bench, composed, fragile, and suddenly unsure whose life she's been living all these years. The courtroom feels like it's holding its breath for her. Even Caprio's voice, when it finally returns, carries something softer, almost paternal. Mrs. Lawrence, maybe this fine isn't punishment. Maybe it's the first bill the world ever sent you directly. In your name. And for the briefest moment, the woman who's always lived under another man's shadow looks like someone who might, at last, be stepping into her own light. She thought her husband was protecting her. But in truth, he had simply taught the world not to see her at all. The next few minutes feel different, like a fog lifting. Judge Caprio flips through the file again, slower this time. He asks the clerk for the original citation photo. The black and white image flickers on the monitor, a car in motion, headlights slicing through rain. Caprio leans forward. Mrs. Lawrence, this vehicle, registered to Lawrence Development, lists you as co-owner. Is that correct? Her head jerks up. No, that must be wrong. I don't own anything. My husband manages all that. The judge glances at the page again, his tone measured. There's your name. Margaret Lawrence, Vice President, Lawrence Development, LLC. She laughs nervously. I've never signed any business papers. My husband handles the legal side. Caprio's gaze doesn't waver. Then perhaps you can explain why your signature appears here, 3 times. The clerk passes her a copy. Her manicured hand trembles slightly as she traces the ink scrawl at the bottom. That's not. I didn't sign this. Caprio signals the bailiff. Please bring her driver's license file. Within a minute, another sheet arrives, her official signature, neat and rounded, nothing like the sharp, slanted version on the company forms. The courtroom goes still. Mrs. Lawrence, Caprio says quietly, it appears someone forged your signature. A few people in the gallery exchange glances. She tries to laugh, but the sound dies in her throat. Oh, George always jokes he can sign for me better than I can myself. This isn't a joke, the judge says, his voice turning low and steady. It's illegal. Her smile falters completely. He wouldn't mean any harm. He just doesn't like when I interfere in business matters. Caprio removes his glasses, sets them on the desk. Interfere? She folds her arms tightly. He says things run smoother when I let him handle them. Does that include your name? She hesitates. Her silence answers for her. The judge's tone hardens, but not cruelly. Mrs. Lawrence, your husband may have signed documents that make you legally responsible for debts, taxes, liabilities, without your knowledge. You could lose everything, and he would still call it protection. The words hit like cold water. She blinks rapidly, as though trying to see through the shock. No, he wouldn't. He says he does everything for us. Caprio leans slightly closer, his voice soft but cutting. Do you know how often I hear that? He does everything for us. And every time, it means someone gave away their voice long before they were asked to speak. Her breathing grows shallow. The gallery is utterly silent now. Even the air feels tense. He continues, you said earlier you live under his name. But what happens when that name becomes the only thing you have left? When it's used to sign things you never agreed to? Her hands grip the table, knuckles whitening. She opens her mouth, but no words come out, only a small, broken sound, part disbelief, part realization. Caprio's tone softens again. Mrs. Lawrence, I'm not here to shame you. But you need to understand, you're not invisible to the law. Or to me. She nods faintly, her voice barely audible. I didn't know. I just thought this was how it's supposed to be. No, he says, simply. That's how someone wanted you to think it should be. The room remains suspended in stillness, a courtroom turned confessional. Caprio studies her face for a long moment before speaking again, quieter than before. Mrs. Lawrence, maybe this isn't about a speeding ticket anymore. Maybe it's about seeing your own name, clearly, for the first time. Her eyes glisten, her lips tremble, but she manages to whisper, I'm not sure I'll like what I see. And for a heartbeat, the courtroom forgets it's a courtroom at all. It becomes a place where truth, long muted, finally begins to breathe. There's a line in every marriage that should never be crossed. She just didn't know hers had been erased long ago. The clerk returns with a thick envelope, the kind that smells of ink and quiet damage. Judge Caprio opens it carefully, scanning the first page. His expression hardens. "Mrs. Lawrence," he says evenly, "this property deed lists you as the sole owner of a coastal residence on Brenton Point. Are you aware it's been mortgaged for the last 6 months?" Her head tilts, confusion washing over her face. "No. We have a house by the shore, but we haven't been there in years. George said it was, for weekends." Caprio looks down again. "According to this document, it was used as collateral for a business loan. The mortgage is in your name." She blinks, trying to piece the thought together. "That can't be right. He said those were insurance papers, he brought them home one evening. I just signed where he pointed." The silence that follows is the kind that presses on the skin. "Mrs. Lawrence," Caprio says quietly, "that wasn't insurance. That was a lien. You are legally the debtor." Her mouth opens slightly, but no words come out. The courtroom hums with the faintest noise, a chair creaking, a pen tapping. Caprio's voice remains calm, though it cuts like glass. "Did you know your husband's company is in financial trouble?" She shakes her head, almost childlike. "He never tells me about money. He says business is his burden, and mine is to stay composed." He sets the papers aside. "It appears he's used your name to protect himself. Everything you thought he owned, the house, the cars, even the company, they all exist under you. On paper, you are the empire." Her breath trembles. "I didn't know. I thought, he was keeping me safe." "He's been keeping himself safe," Caprio replies. "By turning you into his shadow." The words land heavily. She stares at the polished floor, eyes wide, as if seeing the map of her life redrawn in real time. The woman who entered the courtroom certain of her untouchable comfort now realizes she is the one standing on the edge. She whispers, "If everything's in my name, then if it collapses." "It collapses on you," Caprio finishes quietly. Her hands tighten around the edge of the table. A faint sound escapes her throat, half sob, half breath. "I didn't even know what I was signing. He said it was nothing." The judge leans forward. "Mrs. Lawrence, every signature is something. Especially the ones written in your name." She looks up slowly, and for the first time, there's fear in her voice, not of the court, but of recognition. "All these years, I've been a name on his papers, not a person in his life." Caprio folds the document neatly, aligning every corner. "He's been hiding his debts under your identity, and you've been hiding your emptiness under his." The words don't echo, but they linger, like a verdict already passed. She blinks away tears, whispering to no one in particular, "I don't even know who I am without him." Caprio doesn't interrupt. He lets the stillness settle. Then, with the same quiet authority that's guided every case he's ever seen, he says, "Then perhaps it's time to find out. Because someone in this marriage has to step out of the shadow, and I think that someone is you." Her lips tremble. She nods, barely perceptible, but real. In the background, the faint scratch of the judge's pen breaks the silence. The audience doesn't move. For the first time, Margaret Lawrence seems to understand. Her signature may have cost her everything, but it might also be the only thing that can save her. When you stay silent for too long, the truth starts speaking on its own. The courtroom doors haven't even cooled from the last recess when Judge Caprio returns, a folder in his hand and a new heaviness in his step. He looks to his assistant. "Check the city contracts database, Lawrence Building, the last 5 years." The clerk nods, typing quickly. Minutes stretch. The murmur of the crowd dies as a printer hums and a stack of papers slides across the desk. Caprio adjusts his glasses and reads aloud, "According to these records, multiple municipal contracts were awarded under the signature of Margaret Lawrence." A wave of whispers rolls through the room. Margaret looks lost, frozen mid-breath. "That's impossible," she says. "I never signed any contracts. I've never even been in a meeting." Caprio's gaze doesn't soften. Mrs. Lawrence, every contract here lists you as the official representative. Your name, your signature, your authority. Her hands tremble. No. My husband handles everything. He. Your husband, Caprio interrupts, used your name as a front. The company gained special tax privileges under the female-owned business designation. The sentence lands like thunder. The audience murmurs again, a ripple of disbelief. Margaret's eyes dart from face to face, searching for any explanation that will make this less real. Caprio continues, measured and cold. You weren't his partner. You were his shield. While he built his empire, you carried the paperwork that made it untouchable. Her face pales. The realization hits in waves, all those evenings when he came home smiling, saying he'd won another bid. All those envelopes he handed her to sign, assuring her it was routine. She whispers, he said it was just tax forms. He said. I was helping him. The judge nods slightly, but his eyes stay fixed on hers. You were helping him, by taking on the liability he didn't want. And now, Mrs. Lawrence, the law sees you as the person responsible for those deals. She shakes her head, tears welling. He said I was his pride. That he couldn't have done it without me. Caprio's reply is razor thin, he couldn't. That's precisely the problem. The silence that follows is thick. Even the air feels different, heavier. Then, unexpectedly, a woman in the gallery stands. Your Honor, she says softly. I used to work for Lawrence Building. Accounting. 10 years. The room turns. Margaret stares at her, a stranger, but not entirely unfamiliar. The woman's voice trembles but grows steadier with each word. We all knew the contracts were under her name. We were told not to talk about it. He said it was a legal formality. But we knew. Caprio gestures gently for her to sit. Thank you. Then, to Margaret, did you know your husband used your name to avoid an audit? She can barely whisper. No. He sighs, not out of pity but of certainty. Mrs. Lawrence, for years you've been his camouflage. And now, when the storm comes, you'll be the only one left standing in the open. Her tears fall silently. Her voice breaks between words. He said I made him proud, but I was just his signature. Caprio nods slowly, his tone turning solemn. It's time the real signature spoke for itself. He looks toward the prosecutor. Order a full review of every contract bearing her name. If there's forgery here, it's not an administrative issue. It's criminal. Gasps ripple across the courtroom. Margaret doesn't move. She stares at the desk in front of her, as though seeing, for the first time, the weight of her own handwriting. Finally, she whispers, all my life, I thought without him I was nobody. But now it seems, without me, he's nothing. Caprio lets the words linger, the first true statement she's made as herself. Then, quietly, he says. And perhaps it's time to change that balance. The gavel falls once, not to punish, but to mark the beginning of something breaking open. Sometimes, to reclaim your name, you have to lose everything it once stood for. The final hearing draws a full house. Journalists crowd the benches, cameras hum quietly, and the air carries the strange electricity of public reckoning. Margaret Lawrence steps through the courtroom doors alone. No chauffeur. No diamonds. No husband. Just a plain coat and the quiet dignity of someone who's run out of illusions. Judge Caprio watches her approach the table. Mrs. Lawrence, he says gently, does your husband know you're here today? She nods. Yes. He told me I'm making a fool of myself. And what do you think? She takes a slow breath. I think I've spent half my life making a fool of myself for him. This time, I'll do it for me. A murmur ripples through the crowd. The judge hides a small, almost imperceptible smile. The clerk announces the findings, federal investigators have confirmed multiple forged signatures and fraudulent filings tied to Lawrence Building. Caprio's voice remains steady as he reads the conclusion. Given the evidence presented, the matter of financial misconduct will be transferred to federal authorities. The room erupts, reporters whisper, pens scratch furiously. But in the center of it all, Margaret stands perfectly still, like a woman finally letting the storm pass through her. Caprio lifts his gaze. "Mrs. Lawrence, do you wish to make a statement before we close?" Her voice is soft, but clear. "I don't want revenge. I don't want him in prison. I just want my name back, the one he borrowed, used, and nearly buried." Her words hang in the air, heavy yet freeing. The judge leans back. "That's your right. And it's a noble one. But you should know, today, you haven't won a case. You've won yourself." For a heartbeat, the courtroom forgets to breathe. Margaret's tears glisten, but they're not of shame. They are the tears of a person finally touching the edges of her own life. Caprio continues, his tone softer now, but anchored with meaning. "The law can return what's written on paper. But only you can return what was taken from your spirit. Don't let anyone own your name again, not even out of love." She nods, whispering, "Thank you, Your Honor." He gives one slow nod. Court is adjourned. The gavel falls, but the sound feels less like an ending and more like a door closing behind her past. Outside, flashes burst from cameras. Reporters swarm, microphones rising like arrows. She shields her eyes from the glare but doesn't turn away this time. One voice cuts through the noise. "Mrs. Lawrence. Do you regret anything?" She stops on the courthouse steps, lifts her chin, and looks directly into the nearest lens. Her voice is steady, almost serene. "Yes," she says. "That I stayed silent for 20 years. A hush follows. The crowd lowers their mics. For once, nobody interrupts. She walks down the steps, one measured stride at a time, not running, not hiding. The city hums around her, the world suddenly larger than the cage she mistook for safety. Inside, Judge Caprio gathers his files. Before leaving, he glances at the empty defendant's table and says quietly to himself, "Some cases aren't about guilt or innocence. They're about waking up." The heavy courtroom doors close with a low, final thud. Then, silence, the kind that feels like freedom. And somewhere beyond those walls, a woman named Margaret Lawrence begins, at last, to live under her own name.